also going on in Iowa right now, not in terms of transactions, but in terms of players. The hottest player for the Iowa Cubs right now is Alexander Canario. We've talked about him a number of times. He's always been like this really tantalizing prospect who's always put up big numbers in the minors. But because the Cubs are so loaded on outfield, at least they have their starting outfielders in place in the major leagues. He hasn't really had the opportunity, but he has been on otherworldly like the last month or so. I think his weighted runs created plus right now is like 200 or something for like the last 30 games, that is literally a player who is double better than like an average level player. I mean, that is beyond MVP level production. And so again, that's just a month in a level that he's been at for a while, but he's only 24 years old. The Cubs again have been dealing with so many injuries this year. I'd love to see him, even whether it's at DH, whether they want to give, Ian Happ or say Suzuki more of a rest, in terms of letting them DH and putting Canario in the outfield. I'd love to see him get a full-time opportunity for a month or two just to see what his back can do.
Again, I always hate to play the devil's advocate, but I'm going to have to play the devil's advocate here because we always use you and I use the phrase, it's the Canario situation of it's just finding the right spot for him. And for Javier Assad and Ben Brown, it was waiting for people to get injured to put them in, it's like the John Fogerty song, like, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. He's ready to play. It's just they don't have a spot for him yet. And I think it's like banging your head against a wall and just, you're such a good player, but they don't have a spot for you. And I think it's kind of wasted potential. And it's nobody's fault, right? When you have somebody as good as, Seiya Suzuki or somebody like Ian Happ, you don't want to take them out of that position. If they're doing good, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But again, it's again that scenario of you have a good player in that already. Maybe we should put him in the DH spot just so he can get some more experience in the major leagues. But also, I'd like to see him in the, maybe give him a chance and put him in the left field spot. Again, it's kind of a conundrum.
Yeah, for sure. For people who follow the prospects or who have, paid attention to when Canario has been in the big leagues, again, he's one of those classic, super high power, big strikeout guys. I think just in AAA this year, I think he's got like a 78% like contact rate when swinging at pitches in the zone, which is not good at all. You want that number in the high 80s, probably at least as a major leaguer. And so yeah, that'll always be a part of his game. And again, that's still, in the major leagues, that'll only be further sort of exploited by, the best pitchers in the world. But again, the Cubs need power. Again, Christopher Morel hit for good power when he's actually been hitting this year. Cody Bellinger has been pretty solid. Say Suzuki's maybe starting to warm up a bit. He just hit a home run the other day. But the Cubs need power, and Canario is probably the biggest source of it right now in the organization that's not currently on the major league team. Another sort of, I guess, viewpoint I've heard is that, maybe the Cubs can keep him in the minors and let him keep raking and then trade him in a month at the
That's
trade
what I was
deadline.
just gonna say. That's
Yeah,
also a possibility. If you don't have room for him, maybe trade him and we get a player that's kind of more of a veteran.
yeah, for sure. Again, and if the Cubs fancy themselves as genuine contenders this year, which if I mean,
I,
if
I, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry.
if they've been watching the same product we have, they shouldn't. Um, if they do, genuinely look at themselves and say, maybe we're one player away, that Canario could be maybe not a centerpiece of like a prospect package, but he could be a big piece of, maybe getting a really big closer back, or maybe like a big DH or something, to supplement the offense. So again, he's someone who I think, he's sort of pressing the issue, which is what we all want prospects to do, really force the front office's hand. So we'll see. Again, if he keeps raking like this, calls are going to just keep coming for him to come to the majors or maybe to get traded. But again, it's good to see that he's hitting so well consistently right now.
I'll leave it at this. At the end of the day, as much as sometimes people don't think about it, the MLB isn't just, it's not just a sports entertainment conglomerate. It's also a business. And I think, it's something that's forgotten a lot. And I think that's what a lot of people probably will be thinking about during the trade is, this young guy has so much potential. I think there is dollar signs, probably in Craig Counsell and the Cubs' eyes. I think it would be maybe a shame to let him go because he has so much potential. But if they say it, let's say the Mets say, we'll give you Pete Alonso if you throw in Alexander Canario into the trade. I don't think the Cubs would bat an eye at that in the slightest.
Yeah, it's again those hypotheticals as we get closer to the trade deadline are definitely worth talking about. But yeah, it's definitely possible that the Cubs view him as maybe sort of the guy who can push a deal over the line.